So hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. This is one of the Portion Perfection professional series where my goal is to bring to consumers and some of my colleagues as well, I know are here, some of the information that I pick up from all the education that I attend. It's actually been a very busy month for me. I haven't actually been in the clinic very much because there's been two major conferences on this month. There was the International Congress on Obesity, which brought people from all over the world, and that was in Melbourne last week. And there was also the ANSMOS conference, Australian Bariatric Conference. So for this session, I'm your expert, and I'm going to be talking about how much and what to eat for weight control. Now, I know that there's people in the audience who have had bariatric surgery and some who have not had bariatric surgery. So I'm going to address everything. So in thinking about how much and what to eat for weight control, there's a lot of things to think about. So the things that go through my mind are certainly height is going to make a difference. How much muscle you've got makes quite a difference. And that's one of the reasons why men need more food than women do, just because they've got more muscle than we do. So even, size matched, appearance matched, it's very difficult as a woman to get as much muscle as a man can have. And muscle churns through calories all day. Fat just sits there. As women, we automatically have more fat. Also, the amount of incidental activity. So that is our general activity. So whether we're doing a desk job or we're a nurse on the ward scurrying around for an 8-hour shift every day. We've also got the exercise component. So there we need to take into account how long we're exercising for, the intensity of the exercise, what type of exercise. And then we've got things like how long we sleep, which also makes a difference to our energy levels and the rate at which our body burns energy. Our genetics, and thinking about genetics, there's a variety of things that come into genetics. And one thing that I think people don't think about is the fact that some people genetically have a longer intestine. And by having a longer intestine, you've actually got more absorptive surface. And so you can actually get more calories in from the same food as the next person. So that's a nice, simple way to understand the difference between one person and the next. We've also got digestion. So some people's digestion is really good and they get the most out of everything, whereas some people have a bit of malabsorption, and malabsorption is obviously going to result in a higher need for food intake to try and achieve the same calorie and nutrient absorption. So to figure out how much food you need, we can do it through measurement. There are two common methods which are commercially available. One is indirect calorimetry, and we did have a guest on the webinar early in the year, Dave Coombs, who does indirect calorimetry in his physio practice. It's pretty widely available. It's more widely available just for a resting energy expenditure. So just looking at your basal energy expenditure, which is pretty much the number of calories it takes for your heart to beat and for you to breathe and just your normal metabolic processes. That's what we call your resting energy expenditure or your basal metabolic rate. There is also DEXA scans that are commercially available. So if you were to Google measure my metabolism, then you would find some of those opportunities to have that sort of test done. I believe that DEXA is a form of X-ray. It's what's done for bone density. And then we've got bioimpedance, which is what I use in practice. It's very practical, it's non-invasive, it's relatively cheap. And what I use is InBody. An InBody are good, or for any bioimpedance analyzer, you really need one that has handholds as well as foot sensors. And the way that works then is it's sending a current through various directions in your body, and it's measuring how much that current is slowed down by passing through your body. And muscle conducts electricity, whereas body fat does not. And so body fat will slow down the passage, and that's then fed into some fancy equations, and we come out with an estimate of body fat, which is then used to calculate metabolic rates. So again, it's not an accurate measure. The most accurate measure out of what we've talked about is the indirect calorimetry, because it's actually measuring how much of the oxygen that you breathed in is being converted into carbon dioxide for you to breathe out. And that is your cells doing that. So that's an accurate measure. Just to show you a little bit about bioimpedance for those who haven't had a test. And if you just search InBody locations, whatever country you're in, you're likely to find where you could have a test done. And usually a practice might charge $30, $40, somewhere around that, to just do a test. There may or may not be any explanation of that test. But if you've got a dietitian, the dietitian's a good one to interpret the results for you. So as I said, I use this every time I think there's value in weighing someone. There's definitely value in knowing more information than just the number on the scales. A lot of people have the bioimpedance home scales. They're not so accurate. We've compared them often to the higher level. They don't actually give you a number of kilograms of fat. They give you a % fat, and that can be impacted by a number of things, not just how much fat you've got, which is why it's valuable to know how many kilograms of fat you had last time and how many kilograms of fat you have this time. Percentage body fat will be impacted. It will go down if you drink a litre of water, because the proportion of your weight that is fat will go down. It will go down if you increase muscle, and it will go down if you lose body fat. So knowing which one of those is actually happening is the difficulty with the home versions. We'll just have a closer look here. So this is a sample body composition result. On my scan here, this bottom section hasn't come out very clearly, but this is a 65-year-old female. Her height is 156 centimeters, so reasonably short stature. We'll look a little bit more closely at some of this, but just before I kind of zoom in on this, I'll just show you down the bottom here. There's two little diagrams, two little people. And so the InBody equipment is segmental, so it can break down the fat and muscle in each arm, each leg, and centrally. And so for this particular lady, it showed me that she had normal levels of muscle, this segmental lean analysis, normal levels of muscle in her arms and centrally, and low levels in her legs. So that's a relevant thing for me to notice. When we look at the body fat, it's showing over in each section. That would be quite normal for somebody who's aiming to lose weight. It just means that from then on, we've got the opportunity not only to see what someone's losing, is it fat, muscle, or water, but also where in their body they're losing it. So if we look just a little more closely here, I've just honed in on one section here. Just before I look at these two things and my calculation, this muscle fat analysis for this lady, it's got this normal range. Normal kind of feels like an odd word to me now to say it's really what we'd say is the ideal range. You have the lowest health issues within that range. So we've got it for weight. This one is skeletal muscle mass, and this one's body fat. So this normal range reflects the BMI. And on this printout, the range is printed up here, and it shows that for this lady, the ideal weight range is between about 45 and 60. So 60 kilos is the top of the ideal weight range if the BMI is appropriate for her. The way I determine whether the BMI is appropriate is whether the muscle is in the normal range. So if this lady's muscle had been higher than the normal range, then the BMI becomes less appropriate. It's like the footballer issue, that the more muscle you have, the more that muscle's contributing to your high body weight, and that ideal weight range does not apply. So I can always work out the ideal range by working backwards from looking at how much excess body fat there is and subtracting it. But for this lady, the BMI is quite appropriate because her muscle is normal. This one's the body fat. So we can see she's got 40.7 kilograms of actual body fat. And this section up here gives me the range of body fat that would fit into that normal range there. So top of the ideal range is about 17 kilos. So when I was talking to this lady, I jotted that down there for her so that we could see that there was 23 kilograms excess body fat. We also see the BMI and then the percentage body fat. Now you'll notice here for this lady, her BMI is 33.6 and her percentage body fat looks much further outside the normal range. And the reason for that is that as part of her higher body weight or excess body weight, it's only fat that's in excess. There is no muscle that's in excess. So if as you gain weight, you gain both muscle and fat, that's a healthier situation to be in. So often the percentage body fat is the most accurate thing for me to look at and to look for change in, because the BMI just changes with weight, and it doesn't discern whether it's a change in muscle or a change in body fat. So for this lady, one of the things I look at is the shape. If I were to, and I think I can actually, I'll do it with a laser pointer. So if I were to join these 3 points together here, I would get quite a deep C shape. It's actually more ideal that they're all in a straight line. And even better if they're in a D shape. D shape would mean that you've got an unusually high amount of muscle, which means you've got a really good balance of strength compared to your weight. So for this lady, she has a very poor balance. So specifically the distance between this point and this point is what really impacts energy levels. The further apart those 2 points are, the worse your energy levels are, because you're carrying quite a weight, but you haven't got the strength to carry that weight. So the absolute ideal would be that even if this lady's weight did not change, if we could increase her muscle and decrease her body fat, she would feel a whole lot better. Her percentage body fat would go down significantly, and it would be much better for her health. So back to the question of how much does this lady need to eat? So the key things that I look at from the report is this estimate of basal metabolic rate. So remember, it's not a measurement. It's not going to tell me whether she's got a genetically slower metabolism or perhaps she's got a slow thyroid, an underactive thyroid. But it's a good guide for me as to what it should be. And so I would usually base things, unless I know otherwise, I would base things on the evidence I have. And usually I find that to be pretty good. But if I prescribe an amount of food and find that the weight change does not add up mathematically, then we know something's wrong. And there's 3 things that could be wrong. It could be that the food intake is not as prescribed, the exercise is not as prescribed, or the metabolism is not as estimated. And it could be any one of those. So in calculating a metabolic rate, I'm going to take that basal metabolic rate. So metabolic rate is how many calories you need for the day, and basal metabolic rate is how much you would need if you stayed in bed all the time. So we'll take the basal metabolic rate. We want to add on something for incidental activity. So just general movement during the day, how active you are. And then we want to add on something for exercise. So for this particular lady, I said we want to put a figure on that incidental activity of somewhere between 0 and 200, where 0 means you're on complete bed rest and 200 means you're like a nurse on the ward scurrying around for an 8-hour shift every day. Now, she was looking after some children, some grandchildren, and she estimated that she would be about the 150. So we've taken that on board. And then we've estimated her exercise. Now for her, she was doing 30 minutes of straight walking 3 times a week. As part of her in-body report, there is an estimate here of how many calories she would burn in 30 minutes of any of these activities at her current weight and body composition. So it estimates 164 calories for 30 minutes. So in a week, she's doing 3 of those, which comes to 492. And then I want to divide that over the week to come to kind of a daily estimate. So that daily estimate is about 70 calories a day. So when I add up the basal metabolic rate, the incidental activity, and the exercise, that comes to just under 1,500 calories a day. So what I then know is that I'm going to need to go somewhere below that, or I'm going to need to increase something here. We probably can't increase the incidental activity, but there's good opportunity to increase the exercise activity for this lady. She's got the capacity and the ability to do that. I've got a question here from Debbie. Saying she's had a few health issues. She's managed to lose 9 kilograms at 70 years of age. Is that okay? How much is the normal amount of weight I should aim for losing each week? Well, I'm going to say in terms of rate of weight loss, if I'm undergoing a program with someone, I'm usually going to try and get to 0.5 kilo a week. For some people, that's not possible. It really depends on what your metabolism and what your physical activity capabilities are, because we don't want to take the calorie prescription down too low below your basal metabolic rate, or we will start to lower your metabolic rate. So we would maximize the ability to burn. The more you burn, the more exercise you do, there is no negatives to that. But if you just keep reducing your food intake, there are negative consequences to that. So we need to find a balance. So if we haven't got access to an in-body calculation, then what do we do? Well, there are equations that can be used, and you'll also find them online. You'll also find that MyFitnessPal or Easy Diet Diary, anything that estimates your energy need is doing it via a calculation, probably by the Harris-Benedict equation, to estimate using your height and weight only. So it's not going to be perfectly accurate because, as we said, muscle burns more than fat does. So the more muscle you have, the higher, or the more this equation might underestimate your burn, and the less muscle you have, the more it might overestimate your needs. Apart from that, we can do a bit of a best guess. Now, the government would say that women generally burn about 2,000 calories and men about 2,500. I think that's a gross overestimation. You've seen for Our Lady, she's coming nowhere near that. Her basal metabolic rate is only 1,200 and something. So it would take a lot of activity for her to be at 2,000 calories a day. So I tend to do it based more on just my experience of what I find people burn. And I would say, you know, an active woman is more likely to burn about 1,800 calories and a man about 2,200, so a bit lower than the government estimations. You will also see on menus the estimate of how many calories in the US, kilojoules in Australia. And that estimates that the average adult daily energy intake, so not requirement, intake is 8,700 kilojoules, which is 2,070 calories. So it's a bit of an overestimate. It's not really accurate for anybody. It's more than a woman and less than a man. So here's an example though of this comes off the Coffee Club menu, the loaded chicken palmy bowl, 7,200 kilojoules when the daily intake average is 8,700. So that's a pretty loaded meal. And so I guess one thing that I think would be beneficial in looking at how many calories or kilojoules there is in a dish on a menu is to know what's about right for a meal or a snack. So that's one of the things I want you to come out of this session with a bit of a clear understanding as to what that might be, because a daily intake really requires you to then think, okay, how am I going to divide that over the day? You know, is it okay that I'm having most of it at this meal? Maybe I'm not going to eat much today. Maybe there's not many calories in everything else I have. But we'll have a look at that. So this is how I like to do it. And this is how I've put it together in Portion Perfection. So I've indicated there that to maintain weight, a woman needs 1,800 calories. Some women need less than that. A very active woman would need more than that, but I think that's a good starting point. And men, 2,200 calories. Then the mathematics of weight loss says that if you consume 1,000 calories a day less than your body is burning, you can expect to lose 1 kilogram of body fat in the week. So 1,000 calorie restriction every day for 7 days amounts to 1 kilogram of body fat loss. So there's about 7,000 calories in a kilogram of body fat. So I generally go for about 500 calories, and I choose 500 rather than 1,000 because 1,000 is likely to put you below your metabolic rate and start to slow your metabolism. And it's just not doable for a long period of time. And really, we need to think about doing this for a long period of time in most situations. So I've subtracted 500 calories for women, 600 calories for men, and chosen 1,300 calories for women for weight loss, 1,600 calories a day for men for weight loss. And I like those figures because I think the food that translates into is quite doable. It doesn't require meal replacements or skipping meals. You can eat reasonably normally, but obviously fairly small meals. And then post-bariatric surgery, I do have 1,000 calories. And it's only after bariatric surgery that I would recommend this amount. In fact, my recommendation is somewhere between 900 and 1,100 calories a day post-bariatric surgery. I don't recommend that without bariatric surgery because it's almost impossible to maintain for a long period of time. But if you've had bariatric surgery, you've got the ability to feel quite satisfied on that. So let's go with that. Comment from Tamika. Had a gastric bypass 19 months ago, seeing a personal trainer 3 times a week, walking 8 kilometers once a week. I don't consume more than 1,600 calories per day, but cannot lose any more weight. Please, can you give me some advice? Yes. First thing is see whether you can get back to this comfortably. So in looking at how to space out the calories over the day, here's our totals. I've got them in kilojoules as well. And I will say I like to talk in calories because the numbers are smaller and rounder and they're easier to add and multiply. But kilojoules are the correct metric measure for Australia. The UK and the US use calories. So a lot of resources and recipes are in calories. So I just wish we'd use calories. So anyway, I've shown them both there. So hopefully that's useful. So for the bariatric, and I've colored that orange because orange is the color of the bariatric book. So I like to color code things in that way. You can see that meals are 200 to 250 calories. Snacks are 100 calories. Oh, and yes, so the comment about kilojoules being on food labels, quite a lot of food labels do have kilojoules and calories, but there's 4.2 kilojoules to 1 calorie. So the easiest way to convert is to divide the kilojoules just by 4. So halve it and halve it again. So if there's 600 kilojoules in something, halve it to 150, halve it to 75. It's 75 calories. The pink guide here is for women aiming to lose weight. And again, I like that color coding. And in the purple book, which is for weight loss without bariatric surgery. Oh, I just realized I need to let some more people in. So for everyone who has not had bariatric surgery, the purple book applies, and the pink guide in that purple book is the weight loss for women. And what you'll see there is meals of 300 or 350 calories, snacks of 100 calories. Red is the weight loss for men, and the meals are 400 or 450 calories, and the snacks are still 100 calories. So everybody's snacks are 100 calories, and the meals go up by 100 calories as you step up through there. And then those bottom two are weight maintenance. So I think it's really important that I include weight maintenance because that's all where we're going. And I think it's really important to be able to see from the beginning, how does my intake compare to what I needed? Where was I going wrong that caused the weight gain in the first place? So I think it's really important to know where you're going to end up. So why did I jump you back here? So you'll note that the 1,300 calories for our lady will result in a calorie deficit of only 186 calories. Now that's going to result in a loss of 1 kilogram in about 6 weeks, which most people would be a little disappointed by. So my options with her are that we do reduce the calories further, and I'd be prepared for her to reduce them down to 1,100, or we need to increase that exercise, or a bit of both. Query from Adele about the calorie requirements in the bariatric guide. Yes, so there's only one eating plan in the bariatric guide. I think somebody's off mute. If everybody could just check their mute, I would appreciate that. Yeah, so in the bariatric book, there's just one eating plan. It's aimed at the weight loss phase, and from there, we figure out, does weight stabilize on that, or do we actually step up to a greater volume? And as you can see, we can actually step up to the pink guide in the purple book. That would give us 1,300 calories, which should still result in weight loss for most people. But the volume gets much bigger. So it's what we do if somebody's reached a point where their 1 cup of food after bariatric surgery is no longer satisfying. Okay, so let's have a look at what's important when choosing what to eat. So the energy we've talked about. Regularity, I think, is really important, and there is varying research. So do as you please, or as I suggest. Smaller meals more regularly certainly is better for blood sugar control. It's better for any disordered eating. It's better for cholesterol management, for controlling cravings, for mood, and for focus and for muscle maintenance, because the more regularly we're putting amino acids into our bloodstream, the less reason our body has to break down our muscle mass. And that's what we want. There is more and more research on fasting. And so I do see a lot of people who maybe even their doctors suggested that they don't eat until lunchtime. I really can't see that working, but I will say that there is evidence that when you take people who eat breakfast and you tell them to stop eating breakfast, they lose weight. And when you take people who don't eat breakfast and you tell them to start eating breakfast, they lose weight. Now, I think, and we're all prone to hearing the research that agrees with our opinion. But the way that agrees with my opinion is that I think that fasting is gradually going to slow down your metabolism, but it takes a little while for that to happen. So initially you're losing weight, particularly where at breakfast time, your body's been expecting breakfast. It's got everything revved up. It's got your digestive juices ready. It's got your insulin ready. Everything's ready to go. And then you don't eat. So that is going to result still in that higher metabolism, but the food didn't come. So I would expect to lose weight. I think that if you do that over a long period of time, that you then start to gain weight. And I think that because I've been seeing clients for 35 years now, and a whole bunch of them, I'd say the majority of them, have not been eating breakfast. And I do think that if you've got a slow metabolism, you tend not to be hungry early in the day. So it's counterintuitive to eat then, because you think, well, I don't need it now. I'll only eat when I need it. But that seems to drive you to eat more later in the day. And the more you eat in one go, the more your body has to try to deal with, and it can't deal with everything at once. And so what it will do is store a whole lot of it away. So by spacing it out, you get the chance to deal with each little bit. And that means not all the calories from what you ate getting into your fat stores, being stored as body fat. It means you get to use them. But if in the extreme, you only ate 1,200 calories, but you ate them all in one meal, you're likely to use 200 calories of them and store 1,000 of them away for later. And then we hope your body's going to pull out that fat and burn it overnight and up until dinner tomorrow. But the reality is that a whole lot of people are not very good at pulling that fat back out. People with a fast metabolism tend to be very good at it. They perhaps have a high appetite, they store a lot of fat, they burn a lot of fat, they're able to store it and pull it back out. But there's more and more people, and the indirect calorimetry testing that we send people for uncovers those people who are good at storing fat, but very bad at burning fat once it's in the fat stores. So we want to stop it from getting in there. So I believe spacing it out is the way to go. Then we've got how much we eat. And you'll find in Portion Perfection, like on your plate, even for non-bariatric surgery, the recommendation is 1.5 cups of vegetables for weight loss for women. And so some people will say, well, what if I ate 4 cups of vegetables? You know, that's surely better. That's going to keep me more satisfied. And the reason I don't recommend that is that we're then stretching your stomach to a much larger capacity. And you go to a friend's place and she's serving spaghetti bolognese with no salad, then you're going to need that larger volume to feel satisfied. We've got stretch receptors in our stomach, and that's part of what sends the message to your brain to say she's eaten. So we don't want to stretch them so much that they don't respond when you eat a smaller amount. So that's one of the things, that's one of the advantages of bariatric surgery. We've got this much smaller stomach that we develop to a capacity of 1 cup. And if you never eat more than 1 cup of food after bariatric surgery, you will always, your stretch receptors will always trigger on 1 cup. But if you sometimes eat 3 cups of food, then you will decrease the sensitivity of that stretch receptor. It won't trigger at 1 cup anymore, and you'll start to need that larger volume. So before the question comes in, I know that people will say, well, if I've already done that stretching, can I shrink my stomach again? And the answer is probably not, but you can quieten the messages that tell you that react when you haven't reached that that stretch receptor load or that previous volume. And so the first thing to do is to just reduce your volume, do it consistently. It might take a week or 10 days before you really feel like, oh, well, this is enough. So you'll feel as though you're shrinking your stomach. In reality, it's possibly not shrinking. I don't know. So watch your volume. So for weight loss for women, the plate is 3 cups. For weight loss for men, it's 4 cups. For bariatric surgery, 1 cup. I would aim for the meal to be higher protein, relatively high protein. Now, probably protein requirements is a discussion for another day. I don't want to run you over time, and I've got a lot to get through. So I'm just going to say that protein is good and spacing protein out over the day is good. So if, for example, breakfast is not high in protein, and there's not a lot of breakfasts apart from bacon or eggs that are high in protein. There is a nice high protein bread on the market, about 10 grams in a slice. That's really valuable. But if you have cereal or a smoothie, it's very difficult to get a very high protein intake. So if that's the case, then go for protein at morning tea. Go for a high protein, maybe even a small protein shake, 100 calories worth of protein shake at morning tea, to try and make up that morning period to be closer to the amount of protein that you might have at lunch or dinner. So then thinking about nutrient density. Now, there's actually, obviously we want high nutrient density. We're eating less food. We've got the same nutritional needs as we did before we started reducing our intake, but we've got to get all those nutrients into this smaller package. So going for good food is really important. There's actually quite a variety of somewhat less defined theories on what drives our appetite. And I will talk more about appetite in another session. But I think it's interesting to know these theories because sometimes they can feed in to your attitude towards healthy food in a positive way. So there's one theory that says that we're driven to keep eating until we've reached a certain level of a particular amino acid. And I think that's leucine. I think it came from research on crickets, that crickets kept eating until they got this particular level of this amino acid. So, you know, we're somewhat like crickets. Maybe that works for humans as well, which means that if your intake is fairly low in protein, you may be driven to eat more food volume than if your food intake is higher in protein. And certainly we know that protein is more satisfying than fat or carbohydrate. So there's a theory. Another theory says that there's signaling molecules in natural unprocessed foods that communicate with our cells in ways that we don't yet understand. They communicate things about the environment. So they're communicating about the season, which is why it's suggested that local natural foods are better for our health. That may well turn out to be true. There's also theories that we're driven to achieve a variety of tastes. So if you're eating a very narrow range of foods, or you're eating fast food where everything tastes pretty much the same, that your appetite is driven to eat more, and that's a benefit to fast food chains because you'll just eat more. And so I'm just going to say, basically, eating a broad range of nutritious foods is, with minimal processing, is definitely good. Getting variety is also advantageous, and that's because within each food group, there are benefits to different members of that group. And in the fruit group, for example, some fruits are high in vitamin C, some are not. Some are high in beta carotene, some are not. So by only choosing bananas, for example, they're not particularly high in vitamin C, they are high in potassium. Other fruits like an orange is high in vitamin C and potassium, and a bit of beta carotene in there as well. So having a bit of everything has some benefit. And then we also want to take into account convenience. You know, we are living a life here. We've got things to do. Sometimes things need to be easy. So we often need to choose the best available option. But the most important thing, I think, is the consistency. Our bodies really like routine. They like it when we keep doing the same thing because they know what to expect. And in fact, even planning your intake, whether you plan it at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the week, you're kind of laying out a plan that's telling your brain what you want to happen this day or this week. And you've got a far better chance of it actually happening if you told your brain what you want, because our brains actually want to do what we want. They seem to work against us in terms of wanting chocolate or wanting processed foods, and there are reasons for that. But if you're really clear with your brain on what you want to happen, it will help you to follow through. So doing some planning can be really valuable. That way you're really telling your brain what you want. So I believe that seeing really communicates a lot. Seeing really is understanding. So this little very 70s looking cartoon is meant to demonstrate for you why I started showing people how much to eat rather than just telling them. Because here, the dietitian's explaining very carefully what's wanted, and the client's saying, I got it. So I realized many years ago that, you know, clients would say to me, oh, well, I just had a very small piece of whatever, piece of meat or whatever. And I'd be saying, hang on, do that again, just show me again. And we started using plastic food models. And then I started taking some photos of my food as a demonstration for what I wanted in terms of a simple meal like a spaghetti bolognese. And that was when I really saw things click. People started going, oh, oh, that's what you mean. Okay, that's not what I'm doing. So that spurred me on to take some more photos and then share that with the profession and share that directly with consumers. So let's have a bit of a whip through the meals and look at what we're looking for a meal. So breakfast, I recommend it. For bariatric surgery, we're looking for about 200 calories. I'm going to say 200 to 250. For weight loss for women, about 300. Weight loss for men, about 400. The key things to think about with breakfast is protein, which may or may not be easy to get, and fiber. Fiber is important at breakfast, and breakfast is probably the most socially acceptable time to get a lot of fiber. So think a high fiber cereal can be a great idea. So this picture actually comes from the International Bariatric Book. So this one's only adding up to, I've got it coming to 220 calories, but it shows you the idea. So what it says here in the bariatric book is choose one bread, one add-on, one free food, and you'll be right. So here's the breads, here's the add-ons, here's the free foods. There's 100 calories in each of the breads. There's 100 calories in each of the add-ons. There's less than 20 calories in the free foods. So we're going to come to just over the 200 calorie mark. So if we were thinking about the weight loss for women, I won't pull up the page in the purple book, but probably it's going to look pretty similar, but there might be 2 slices of bread, or it might be 1 slice of bread and 2 of these. And for weight loss for men, it might be 2 of these and 2 of these. So you can see that there's actually benefits in learning what there's 100 calories in. And I wouldn't get too exact. So I've gone for generalization. Sorry, somebody's just told me they've lost view of my computer screen, but I think it's still there. We will be sending out the recording to everybody. So if you do have any mishaps like that, you can look at the rest later. So if we hone in closely on the add-on section there, you can see there's a little blue dot that tells you how many grams of protein there is in each of these. So you can see what's a better choice in terms of trying to build your protein intake. For snacks, for weight loss, for bariatric surgery, women or men, I would recommend a 100 calorie snack. I'd go for something nutritious. You don't want to waste it on a packet of chips or anything that's not giving you anything valuable. Go for something that's satisfying and, maybe is communicating with your cells. Think about protein. Protein may be important depending on how much protein's in your meals. And for some people, a protein supplement, like we talked about for morning tea, can be a good decision. So looking at snacks in the book, things like fruit. So I've shown you what would be a 100 calorie snack. So here it's a large apple, or it's a medium banana, or it's a small mango, or it's 2 kiwi fruit. With nuts, it's 14 cashews or 14 almonds, or any of the other things that you can see there. Might be vegetables and dip. So it could be 6 carrot sticks and 2 tablespoons of hummus, or any other combination there. This is taken from the Australian book. So these are all the Australian products, all the yogurts. There are a few brands similar in the US. Activia and Chobani are in both, and Siggy's, I think, are in all places. This little symbol here indicates that yogurt has probiotic bacteria, which has some benefits. Particularly, there is quite an association between depression and anxiety and excess weight. And a daily yogurt has been found to reduce depression and anxiety. So why not choose one of those probiotic yogurts to have once a day? Some of them are quite high in protein. My favorite's this Siggy's. It's got 14 grams of protein, uses no non-nutritive sweeteners. It's got more calcium than anything else on the page, and it's got a low level of sugar. You can also get the plain version, and it comes in roughly, everything here is roughly a 100 calorie serve. And then we've got a few higher protein options. So that's where our snacker might come in handy. It comes with a chart that tells you what you could put in each size container to be a 100 calorie snack. So for example, the nuts would go in here, and whether it's pine nuts or Brazil nuts, the amount that fits in there is going to be approximately 100 calories. I don't like to get people too hung up on calories, which is why the books are color coded and pictorial. I don't really want you looking up that there's actually 82 calories in an egg. Just think of it as 100. There might be a boiled egg in here. There might be some dried fruit in here. There's 4 containers. You only need 3 snacks in a day, but one of those snacks might be the carrot sticks here and the hummus in here to join together. Somebody's commented that there seems to be a lot of sugar in the yogurts. Absolutely true. The best way to avoid that is to go for a natural yogurt and maybe mix some passion fruit in there or something. But usually yogurts might have 2 teaspoons of sugar in 2 teaspoons of added sugar in a 100 calorie serve, 1 teaspoon of natural sugar. So you can't get rid of that one. That'll be in the plain one as well. But the sugar that's in a yogurt will be absorbed more slowly. It's got a low glycemic index. So that's why I allow that amount. Everything else that you see in the everyday section of Portion Perfection is limited to 1 teaspoon or less of added sugar. Lunches, bariatrics, we're looking for 250, weight loss for women 350, weight loss for men 450. Think about the fiber. Lunch and dinner, we really need to get some vegetables in there. The recommendation for all of it is that we take in about 2.5 cups of vegetables, so don't miss the opportunity. If you've had bariatric surgery, you're probably not going to manage to get 2.5 cups of vegetables. Well, you're not going to manage to get 2.5 cups of vegetables in a day, but we want to maximize what you do get. Think about the fiber that's coming from there. It's also important for the protein. So we also want protein at lunch and dinner as well. So don't fall into the trap of having just spread on crackers for lunch, because you're missing out on fiber, you're missing out on vegetables, you're missing out on protein. This set of pages comes from the Purple Book. It's actually an open sandwich. The weight loss for women page there says choose 1 of these, choose 3 of these, choose 1 of these and 1 of these, which is a cup full of salad. So it could be this nice piece of high protein bread, could be 1 serve here is 30 grams, so 3 serves would be 90 grams of chicken. We could have 1/3 of an avocado and a cup full of salad, and that would make up our open sandwich for weight loss for women. If we were bariatric surgery, it's likely to be 100 calories from here, 50 calories from here, so 1 of these, and it'll probably be half of 1 of these. The kit and carry is our way to make it easy to pack the right lunch. So it comes with the snacker, it comes with our preppers. So this one's the bariatric one. There it is with food in it. This is the non-bariatric. There's markings on the side for women, or the men are on this side, to get exactly what's on the plate. It comes with an ice pack with a separate dressing container. This is the pouch for the cutlery. Got a knife that's serrated well enough to cut an avocado and spread some avocado without stabbing into anything in your lunch bag. Small-headed fork and spoon for slow, mindful eating, and a napkin. So it comes either with the bariatric prepper or the Porty prepper. There's nothing about the bag that says which one you've got. It's just what's inside. So you buy either the Barry kit and carry or the kit and carry. Evening meals, that same calorie distinction, protein and fiber, again, being the important things. For your evening meal, protein, carb, and Vegetable is the typical makeup. This is the bariatric plate. This is an optional bit of carb. You can either fill it all with salad or other vegetables, or incorporate that little bit of carbohydrate along with the half plate of protein. In the purple book, I've shown you how to modify your intake, because sometimes you don't actually want that carbohydrate at dinner. So if, say, you've got a nice big piece of fish and you just want to have fish and salad, then this divider here between the protein and carbohydrate can move. So if the fish is taking up the whole amount, scrap the carbs, have a double-sized piece of protein and your salad or other vegetables and your little bit of oil. Or if it's not quite double, you can slide this around to wherever it comes to, have a smaller amount of carbohydrate, bigger amount of protein. That's fine. And I've also shown you how to substitute fat for the carbohydrate. So for example, you might be having a salad and there's no carbohydrate that you want to add to that salad, but you'd love to put some avocado or some nuts through the salad. So I've incorporated a page in the purple book that shows you how you could scrap the carbohydrate in favor of fat. So there's a list of all the things, all the options to replace the carbohydrate. And in the picture, I have used a third of 3 of them. So one of the options there, for example, was 15 olives. I've used 5 olives. I've used 10 grams of feta cheese, and I've used a 12th of an avocado there. So you can modify how you use that. So the full range is aimed to help you to actually easily apply this information, gives you ideas for meals and snacks, gives you guidance on how much protein there is in different things, gives you structure to help to plan out what you're going to be eating, gives you the tools to use repeatedly and to be visual reminders that you're doing this. You know, that plate, keep putting it back, or have several plates in the cupboard. It's going to be a reminder to actually follow it. The 4-week weight loss menu plan is recipes that fit the concept. Free vegetables is also recipes for that free vegetable section of your plate. And you can always access the social support through the Facebook group and education right here. There's a link there for anyone who doesn't already have the free 7-day menu plan. And for the month of October, we've got a special on, which I thought I'd remind you about. So the coupon code is Mindful. It works on either the US or the Australian site, so greatideas.net.au in Australia or portiondiet.com in the US. It does not work on Amazon because we've got no way to connect this on there. But for any order over $75 in your currency, when you put in that code, you'll get a free download of our hypnotherapy audio. So I hope that's been useful. If you've got any last questions, please pop them in the chat now. I'll just have a quick look, see what's in there. We can still eat bread. Excellent. Not to be deprived. There's no sense being deprived because we do really need to do this for a long period of time. There's a whole lot of contributors to the world's problem with weight at the moment. We'll talk about more of them in future sessions. You don't have control over some of them. So the best things we can control is our own micro environment. What time did the webinar start? It started at 7:30 Sydney time. It is recorded. So everybody who's registered will receive a copy of the recording. Somebody said, should we be snacking, or is it okay to miss snacks and have more calories at 3 meal times? Okay, that's a very good question. I would say that there's research that says that it makes no difference whether you snack or you don't snack. I think it makes a difference, and I apply it to some people and find it makes a difference who don't usually snack. It's definitely good for all the reasons that I talked about. but whether it accelerates weight loss is debatable. I think for a subset of the population with a slow metabolism, I think it does, because we're getting that separation, giving you the chance to burn a bit every time you eat. But for some people, it doesn't suit them to eat snacks. So what I'd encourage you to do is to take that snack and put it with the meal before. So instead of just having a sandwich for lunch, you have a sandwich and a piece of fruit, instead of having the sandwich for lunch and the piece of fruit for afternoon tea, for example, so that you're still getting the same amount. It's been my absolute pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you next time. If you've got any questions, feel free to go to the Facebook group and slip them in there. I'm very happy to answer them there. All right. Good evening.